This baby is ours. My pregnant wife insisted, but I saw the footage. I stayed silent. Then I asked for a paternity test. She laughed it off until she saw my evidence minutes later. Her face went pale. I suspect my pregnant wife, 38F, may have had an affair, but I don't want to crush her by asking for a paternity test. Should I wait until the baby is born or do it now? My wife, 38F, and I, 39M, have been together for 12 years, and I describe our relationship as nearly perfect. In all that time, we've only raised our voices at each other maybe 2 or 3 times. We do everything together, but we've always respected each other's need to pursue our own interests and lead our own lives. We bought a house we both love, and we have well-paying jobs with excellent work-life balance. It's been everything I could ask for, short of perfect. We've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years without success, and just as we were about to start fertility treatments, I came home from a work trip and found out she's pregnant. I had this strange thought, wondering, wait, didn't we take a break from trying last month because of the fertility testing? But I couldn't remember the details and assumed I just misremembered. I travel a lot for work, sometimes as much as 40 weeks a year, although it's been less since COVID, but still more than a week a month. In the past 4 to 5 years, my wife has gotten quite close to a guy she works with. Let's call him Matt. He's a little younger, around 34, and I know him and his wife. They've worked together for about 7 years. He's always been around, and we've been friendly. Have I ever thought something might be going on? No. But I've always thought that you'd be naive not to consider even a 1% chance that your spouse might step outside the relationship. She's never given me any reason to doubt her, but I've always been cautious and never taken her, or anyone else I've been with, for granted. Anything is possible. So about a month ago I'm out of state for work and she's at home. I ask her what she's doing earlier in the day and she says Matt is coming by for dinner. Not out of the ordinary, Matt comes by from time to time. Sometimes with his wife, sometimes without, sometimes when I'm not there. I don't think much of it. We have a security system which includes cameras both inside and outside of the house which we installed after an unrelated incident a few years ago. They record and are live accessible by both her and I. I often use those cameras to check on the dog when I or both of us are away, as the rest of the system is monitored by a company in case of an alarm going off. She knows I check those cameras. There's a system installed where I can talk through them. I'll mess with my wife and she will with me on them if either of us are out of town. She travels for work as well, but far less than I do. Point is, it's known that I check them often when I'm not at home. I turned on the camera and saw my 4-month pregnant wife lying on the floor, on her side, with Matt sitting on top of her legs and using a foam roller to massage her hips. Naturally, I was like, what the hell is going on here? I started rewinding the footage and saw them eating and talking casually. Then they moved to the couch, got under the same blanket, and were sitting feet to feet. The couch isn't that big, though. After a while, they moved to the floor, and that's when I logged in. I texted her while still watching the footage. They both looked shocked, and Matt quickly left. We argued, but she wasn't mad at me accusing her. She was insistent that nothing inappropriate had happened, and that what I saw was just her complaining about pregnancy pains, which I know is true since she's been dealing with back pain. The most important part of our conversation was when I asked, if I were there, would you have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? She hesitated but eventually admitted, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk anymore and would discuss it when I got home in 3 days. That's when it hit me. What if my strange gut feeling when she told me she was pregnant was right? What if my 1% suspicion had become a reality, and this baby isn't mine? I couldn't stop thinking about it while I was alone at a hotel, 1,000 miles away for 3 days. I tried to convince myself that it's unlikely anything happened between them. But that 1% doubt had now grown to 10%, 20%, maybe even more. When I got home, she was walking on eggshells and didn't mention it. I waited for her to bring it up. 2 days later, she finally did, breaking down and swearing that nothing had happened and that she would never do that. She didn't try too hard to prove anything, which I took as a good sign. We talked things through and reached a point where we could move forward, for now. I'm still struggling with trust and trying to figure out how to rebuild it after all this time. I'm getting more and more understanding of the fact that they are friends. They've been friends for so long, maybe he has intentions. But I don't see her having any, and I've never really picked up on it, and I've spent time around both of them together many times, and never caught anything. So the thing that is destroying me right now is, if I'm wrong and something did happen, while I can figure out how to deal with that, what if that child isn't mine? In the argument and few long conversations we've had about the situation since, I've never brought that up, and she's not mentioned it. Mostly because I don't want to make the situation worse and crush her if in fact she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only thing I can think to do at this point is to wait until the baby is born and immediately order a paternity test in secret. Should I do that? Should I tell her and have it dealt with now? If you're a woman in her shoes and you're telling the truth, would that destroy you, or your view of me? If you're lying, what would you do if I asked? I don't want to ask a super vague question, but what do I do? TLDR, very small chance my wife of 12 years had an affair and she's 4 months pregnant and I can't bring myself to ask for a paternity test for fear of crushing her if nothing actually happened. But I am planning on doing it in secret when the baby comes. What do I do? Update, there are so many comments. Thank you all, I appreciate them more than I can respond to individually, but I'll keep reading through them. Please stop DMing me about this, thank you. Some of you have made good points about addressing this issue now rather than later, and I'm considering it more seriously than I was before. I appreciate the input. To those of you focused only on my relationship, I get it, but that's not my primary concern right now. My wife and I talk openly about things, and we've discussed this a lot. While I'm not saying I'm convinced nothing happened, right now, my focus is on paternity. If I need to track, spy, or use Life 360 on my wife, then this relationship is over already. That's not the kind of relationship we have, nor the kind I want. In my opinion, it's not a healthy one for anyone. We're working on rebuilding trust. As I mentioned before, my initial 1% doubt has grown to about 10%. Trust me, I'm taking this seriously. But to those I've already told this to, if the child isn't mine, then there's nothing more to discuss. I've already spoken to my lawyer. I don't live in a state where birth certificate issues will be a problem. If I have paperwork showing the child isn't mine, divorce won't be a significant issue for either of us. We're both financially independent, so it won't matter much either way. I'll continue updating this post as long as I can and will share an update if and when things get resolved. Update, there's a slight chance my 39M, pregnant wife, 38F, had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? So, she was out of state on a business trip until late last night. It's Friday, so she worked from home in our kitchen. I asked to talk and brought up the topic, requesting the test. She immediately said yes and said there's zero doubt and nothing that she'd even have a second to worry about. But she has no problem doing it now. The only caveat I left it with is, if it's invasive at all per our doctors, then I'm okay waiting until it's low risk. I'm not a doctor, no clue what they'd have to do it now. So not sure when we are. But she's aware and we are getting one. It was a decent and longer conversation. We are currently sitting together getting lunch. She's got no clue I did this on Reddit. Hence the new account because she is on here somewhere. Thank you everyone for your help and opinions. A bunch of you made me realize that we are already really open about everything, and if nothing happened then she wouldn't worry about getting one. I was more concerned about her health and the stress that might come with addressing this, especially since she has an at-risk pregnancy and it took us such a long time to get pregnant. Thanks again to everyone for the support. I'll provide an update on whether the baby is mine or not, though I'm not sure how long that will take. I'm about 90 to 95% sure it is mine, but this conversation will help us move forward. Update, it seems like this topic has come up more in this post than the previous one, so just to clarify, yes, I have the footage. No, I haven't talked to Matt yet. He's expressed wanting to discuss it with me, but I've asked them both to hold off for now. My focus is on my relationship with my wife and the paternity situation right now. I will eventually have a conversation with Matt. No, I'm not going to involve Matt's wife intentionally. I don't see why I would, unless it's out of spite. I'm not going to cover for Matt, but his relationship is his to manage, and mine is mine. I don't want to make this any worse. Whatever's going on between him and his wife isn't my concern. Update 2. Slight chance my 39M, pregnant wife, 38F, had an affair. Should I ask for a paternity test or wait? I'm an old soul, and I didn't quite get how the update bot worked, so here's an update. I've also edited this into the last one. Update number 2. Hey everyone, I've been away from this account for a while because I've been bombarded with some pretty harsh messages. People calling me an AI, wishing for my wife to have a miscarriage, or claiming she'll secretly get an abortion to save herself. Others have criticized me for not keeping it real and accused me of being a clown for even entertaining these suspicions. I'm honestly surprised people are still following this saga after all this time. Here's where we stand now. Yes, my wife is still very much pregnant. She's at the stage where bending over to pick things up is difficult. She's due in 6 weeks, just realized that, time has flown. We're having weekly ultrasounds at this point, and the baby already weighs about 5 pounds with a big head. We've had some long, honest conversations about everything. She's adamant that nothing has ever happened and insists nothing ever would. She's been pretty upset with herself for causing my doubts, and I've tried to reduce her stress as much as possible. This will definitely be revisited after the baby is born. For now, my primary concern is the child and the birth going smoothly. Well, mostly. Maybe not only. The main point of disagreement is that I felt like he was getting too close, perhaps because he was seeking attention he wasn't getting elsewhere. She doesn't see it that way, but she's admitted it's possible and that if that was the case, she was blind to it. I told her I wanted a paternity test and she immediately agreed to it and said no problem at all. My only stipulation was that it couldn't be medically risky or stress-inducing at all as she's a high-risk pregnancy. We both spoke to her doctors about it and they basically told us that our only option was to go to the courthouse because they wouldn't do one without the law involved. Which we both thought was ridiculous. Her doctor was a bit thrown off by it, so I didn't press very hard. It was honestly her pretty much demanding it. I knew there were other options. I looked into those other options and ultimately decided to wait until the birth, and I have a lab already set up to do it, ready to go. I'm 95% sure it's unnecessary, but I'm still getting a paternity test for my peace of mind, mainly so nothing comes between me and my child. To those of you who have sent me messages of support that I haven't responded to yet, thank you. I plan to go through them tonight before I head out again. To those who've left messages suggesting I act like a high schooler, get violent, cheat on my wife to prove a point, or engage in other childish behavior, thanks for the entertainment. But seriously, stop watching TLC and TikTok. That kind of drama isn't the answer, folks. And to the one person who suggested I cause an accident with my wife, I hope you find yourself behind bars one day. I probably won't be back on here until after I get the results from the lab, which should take about 1.5 to 2 months. If you're really interested in the outcome, check back in then. I'll give you your Maury moment at that time. OOP answers questions in a comment. Just a heads up, I'll be posting something I responded to someone else on the last post, but I probably won't check this account until after the baby is born. Comment number 1, it seems like people are reading more into my suspicions than I actually said. I've seen things like, dude, they were in bed together, or they were cuddling under a blanket, but that's not what I said. Here's what I actually saw. They were sitting on the sectional couch in my living room at opposite ends, under the same large blanket, feet to feet. The massage. She was laying on the floor and her side he was sitting by her feet and rolling one of those big foam rollers on her back and side, which is something I do all the time because she's been complaining about back and outer hip pain. Still enough for me to raise a concern with her. But people seem to be reading into that as they were basically dry humping and thought you couldn't see. Comment number 2, I'm being told that I'm being oblivious and ignoring the obvious. And letting her and him off the hook. This is a direct comment I left someone giving my thoughts on that. I think they said something like, this is what guys who choose to have their head in the sands. My response. Yeah, I'm pretty well aware of that. I've also stated many times that my wife is a high-at-risk pregnancy, so I've decided to try and not explode things until I know something for a fact and risk what would potentially be the only opportunity one have to have a child at my age. If I'm wrong and I've blown this all out of proportion, I honestly don't know how I could live with myself. My marriage probably wouldn't survive that either. So, I don't see that as a good outcome. If I handle it calmly and like an adult, and it turns out I'm wrong, then great, we can move forward. But if I'm right, we can still deal with the situation based on facts, not speculation. If the child is mine and the birth goes smoothly, then we'll have a healthy child, and I can address whatever damage has been done, whether by her or not, without putting my future child at risk. Trust me, I'm not ignoring this. I'm choosing to support my wife through the pregnancy first, then I'll deal with the rest. This has probably been the hardest emotional challenge I've faced, but here we are. I know I've been sarcastic in some of these comments, but honestly, I appreciate everyone's concern. I've received some good advice, and writing all of this down has been cathartic. Most of my friends are the type who would rather argue about golf or something else pointless. I love them, but I don't really have anyone other than her to talk to about any of this. So, truly, thank you. New updates. Baby boy is here, born September 27, 7 pounds 10 ounces. He had what the doctors in New York said the biggest meconium they've seen in a while on the table, so it was likely he was about 8 pounds when he was born. Labor was induced early morning on the 26th. Labor was like 30 hours. Pushed for like 3 hours. No progress, ended up in a C-section. He's perfectly healthy, and kind of a tank. I was almost a 10 pounds baby. Mom is recovering, and while it's been tough, we're making progress. They've told us we'll be discharged on Tuesday. We live just about 2 miles from the hospital, so I've been going home to shower and grab an hour or two of sleep here and there, but otherwise, I've been here the whole time. As for the paternity test, given everything involved with the birth, recovery, and honestly, a bit of embarrassment, we haven't started it yet. But it's all set up and will begin on Tuesday when we leave the hospital. I'll provide a final update once the results come in, which should be in about a week to 10 days. From what I've seen, I'm confident this baby is mine. Matt and I are physically very different. He's about 5 feet 8 inches, 175 to 180 pounds, while I'm 6 feet 3 inches, 240 pounds. I've always believed babies look alike except for clear ancestral traits, and this baby definitely has some physical traits that clearly come from me. Still, I'm doing the test but I'm not worried about it. I'll post an update when the results come in. The baby is healthy, but mom has been facing some challenges. The baby was born on September 27th after 30 hours of labor, ending in a C-section, weighing 7 pounds 10 ounces. Unfortunately, mom hasn't had a smooth recovery. We were expecting a 4-day stay but ended up being in the hospital for 8 days. Mom has had to go back to the hospital twice since then. Right now, I'm sitting in the car with the baby because mom is in the emergency room. She is making progress but still having a hard time with a few things. As I mentioned before, she has some pre-existing issues that we knew would make this hard. But there have been a few hurdles, but we are getting over them together. As far as paternity, the results came back this morning. Greater than 99.9999 match that I am the father. I did pretty much already know this, but now there is no question and I can put it behind me. My wife and I have had many deep discussions about everything leading up to the birth, especially around the time of my original post when all of this began. We are in a good place now, and while there will always be lingering feelings, we both recognize areas in our communication that need improvement because of everything that's happened. I also saw Matt today, and that's been resolved. I'm confident that what I witnessed was just him helping her with pain, as a friend would, and nothing more than that. I want to thank everyone who sent a message or DM, whether the comments were positive or negative. Talking to all of you strangers helped me get through this waiting period, and I truly appreciate it. Now, I'm going to spend some quality time with my son. Thanks again.